Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Haley Mitchell Haugen. I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Editions and Sheila-Na-Gig Online. And tonight we are celebrating the short reading from 5 of our Sheila-Na-Gig Editions authors. They're going to each read 5 poems. And I also invite our readers to just tell us a little bit about your book, too, because some of them have been out for a little while and some have been out, longer than a little while. so people may have forgotten or haven't heard. And so we'll just give us a little bit of information. So we've got Jonie McIntire reading tonight from her book, Semidomesticated, which I was happy to be able to do a reprint of. This is a prize-winning book from another press, so she's going to read from that. We've got Michael Minassian reading 1,000 Pieces of Time, his new collection, and Michael Dwayne Smith reading from Shaking Music from the Angry Air. Very cool there. And John Repp reading from Never Far from the Egg Harbor Ice House. And finally, Chuck Salmons reading from Surviving the Eremocene. So again, these are all a range of Sheila-Na-Gig Editions authors, and very happy to have you all here. You can find all of these works and others at Sheila-Na-Gig-blog.com. So instead of reading bios and doing long introductions, I just, will invite our authors to just say a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your book, and share your poems as we plan. So take it away, Johnny.
Thank you so much, Haley. Okay, so my book is Semi-Domesticated, and so I have been working in a hospital for the last couple of years, and one poem that I can read from the book is called. So I'm going to have some healthcare stuff at the beginning, but this is called On Driving Heather to Radiation. We're at the clinic just in time to watch The Price is Right, to check out contestants with customized t-shirts assaulting Drew Carey, shaking and falling like clowns at his feet. 6 weeks of this. There's free coffee, but it's barely beige. All of the magazines are about cancer, except for 2. The Women's Day from an earlier season has been memorized by the end of week 1. And we joke about writing something silly for Field and Stream, a camping trip for women who could not care less about nature. By week 3, her hair is falling out, but only in the front. Heather's wearing Steve Tyler scarves and really rocking them. Shaving her head is the next step, but she's not ready. As I wait for her, I watch Drew Carey call a housewife from Pasadena into play, and what looks like her entire neighborhood stands up screaming with joy. And I could swear if Carey called me up, I would play and scream and cry just like the people on TV. I would find the highest bid and add 1. Would look to Heather in the crowd, reading her face, to decide if the coffee brewing alarm clock is worth more than the Liquid X Ultimate Car Detailing Kit. And the final spin at the big upright wheel that's all chance and small flags, big numbers you want, but little that can add up. I'd pray to the God I long ago gave up on for the gold 85, followed by the magic of green 15. And if, like a miracle, all of that just being there added up to something, I'd fall on my knees like all the winners do, wrap myself around Drew and scream hallelujah. But then she comes back out, adjusts the scarf on her head, and we go pick up her kids from preschool. That was actually at a time that I had a friend who named Heather who was going through one of many rounds of chemotherapy and radiation, and she's fine now. So this is the good story, right? This is the good story. there are a lot of good stories. So even bad stories sometimes are good stories. And this next poem is kind of speaking to that. I have a group that contacts each other through email, and we do a thing where one person writes a poem, and the last line of their poem becomes the first line of the next person's poem, and it goes like that. And it's a nice little prompt and way to just kind of keep yourself writing and stuff. But this comes from that, and it's a newer one. So and I don't want to introduce it too much, but I do want to say an honor walk. I don't know if anybody knows what an honor walk is. It's when somebody donates their organs, so they're alive, because of course, but their family walks with them down to the surgery, and then all of the people in the hospital, not all of the people, but some of the people in the hospital like line the corridor and just kind of pay honor to that person who is saving other people's lives. Okay, so honor walk. ICU room 8. Joy in his work and patience with the boys. His wife touches the little note he had tacked up at work. She rubs it between pointer and thumb, calls about the car. What if it's in his name? Who will drive the kids to baseball on Thursdays when she has to work? Who goes to a doctor in their 30s? None of us expected this, but here we are, waiting for word from the nurse. In the hallway, the boys sit with Sue, who still doesn't know how godmothers are supposed to explain death and organ donation. She asks the nursing assistant, "Is saying he's saving 2 people right?" "Yes," we say with our eyes as we line up, his body laid out in a stretcher, then an underpaid transporter, his nurse and surgeon, a respiratory therapist, the wife and kids, his mother who sobs with her whole body, and the brothers and cousins and 2 uncles and an aunt. Down the elevator, through the halls, past a hallway lined with residents and nurses sobbing with their fears, and through the doorway, surgery written above it, to his finest hour, his final hour. So whenever they announce the honor walks, I can't even do it. Like I can't even stand in that hallway. It's too much. Okay, it's too much. It's too much. And then, so I'm a transporter. So which just means I like wheel people to their whatever they have to go to. If you have to get a CT scan or whatever. Well, I got the ticket, so I had to take them. And then it's different, then when you're part of it, this has to be done. And so it was really, that was a big moment. Okay. So this next one is called Lament of the Orderly. Everything will be okay, I say for the 5th time today, wheeling a woman's broken son to surgery. And overall, it has been okay. Early morning morgue trip was old and bloodless. A midnight lull, long overdue. And mostly the usual suspects since. Middle-aged heart trouble, post-stroke scans, and the sweetest little girl with cancer. It all sort of falls to the background as the year rolls along. So I focus on what I might change. Tracking the tall basket-like oxygen tank holders we refer to as cages. Some days we scour floors for extras so broken-hipped patients can roll from X-ray to MRI with their oxygen ready. I ask my boss why they aren't replenished like the tanks are. Suggest tracking and restocking. But she explains that they're already doled out evenly. If there are problems, that's on the nurses. We can't fix everything. So fault gets set, And yet I hear my phone, bing, another ticket to pick up someone dangerously close to my own age to go for a CAT scan. An ICU patient with an IV pole like a Christmas tree. We wait, the nurse and I, fussing over cords for a respiratory therapist, both of us keeping busy as if we could save someone just by being here. That's a theme, isn't it? Oh, well. um, this next one is, I don't actually remember where I got this form. And it was sort of like a, people can, it does sound like a new book is on the horizon. Um, um, but so this form, the idea was you have 6 different stanzas, and each stanza is about something separate, and yet they all tie together. And I mean, I wasn't being very deeply creative when I did this, but it's like people in my family. And it's actually my husband and I and our parents. So anyway, that's the idea. How we form a chrysalis. 8 p.m. Kids and dogs in the backyard packing snow under paws and into cheap, undersized gloves. You already in bed, trying to get one good night's sleep. I worry my love is too thin to warm you. A simple lesson in science. The found chrysalis and the box cutter. My mother, always afraid she's not enough, slices too deep, wears fear like an anger, and weeps for what will not transform. My father, a quarry wanderer, gent among rocks, not people. If he'd slipped as a child, it's possible no one would have found him. And yet, year after year, a listener, lover of the joke about a man and his nuts. I'll tell you the joke later. If the microwave sets a wall to the right and the toaster sets a wall to the left, surely only a tolerable limit of dishes can pile in the sink between. Your mother, survivor of tragedies, sets her base solid. When his foundations failed him, your father sought bedrock, recited the word control like a mantra he didn't believe in, watched his tiny mother-in-law, always tipsy, hug and shush her grandson toward a morning bus. We are too much ourselves and too much these threads woven around us. My love, which we both know is fickle, grew among rocky soil. Here we practice shedding our skins, wrap ourselves in all of this silk. Thank you very much. And then this last one was part of the 5 Parks, 5 Poets series that's in Toledo. I live in Toledo, Ohio. I was the most recent poet laureate of Lucas County from 22 to the last few months, right? And so this project, you were assigned one of the metro parks, and then you had to write something to it, but what you wrote had to fit on a postcard. So not only do you have to write this thing and then you have to read it to people, but it also has to fit on a postcard. Okay, and then hear me out. So the park that I got was just recently renamed. And so I really had this, like, how the importance of names and how that makes such a difference for people who are like transgender. And then not only that, but I also had a cousin who committed suicide, and he was younger. He was only 19. And so, and this, anyway, I'm explaining too much. Here we go. This is a poem that I wrote for my Aunt Casey for her son who died. I stand and speak your name out loud to the 12 tribes of the Ottawa and to Gavin, 2004 to 2023, and for all we lost before we understood. From the base of Roche de Boot to the crumbling edge of the interurban bridge built of stolen land upon its memories, I acknowledge our history and sing you slowly as a lullaby to the butler, the missionary, and Indian islands. I belt your name out with the vibrato of leopard frogs serenading commuters and kayaks, the common map and snapping turtles. I set my feet deep as silver maples, as honey locust and pin oak, and chant your name to the warblers, to the long-legged egrets, to the gossiping gulls. I whisper your name through the water as it pools and rushes, as it carries you as an echo down along the towpath out into the body of Ohio. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm up. I'm going to read from my book, 1000 Pieces of Time. And it's actually the third book in a row that concerns our concept of time and what happens when we look to the past and the future. And in particular, I like to take actual characters or literary characters, mythological characters, and pluck them out of whatever past century they lived in and drop them into the present time to see how they act. A lot of the poems in this book deal with that, including poems about Oliver Cromwell and the Buddha, Emily Dickinson, Leon Trotsky, and others. So I'm going to start with a poem about Amelia Earhart. I'm always fascinated by her and her disappearance. And this poem is called Amelia Earhart on Long Island. I once met Amelia Earhart coming out of a general store on the North Shore of Long Island back in 1974. I knew it was her because of the leather aviator's cap she wore pulled down on her head and the antique brass sextant she gripped in her hand. She wanted to know if I had seen her navigator, Fred, and asked me to drive her down to the beach. Walking along the sand, she pointed to an object sticking out of the water and asked if it was her Lockheed plane. But I told her no, it's just a rock the locals call Dead Man's Elbow. Puzzled, I ask her about the Japanese and Nikamororo Island. Instead, she tells me the things she misses the most, cherry blossoms and snow, and says the beach here reminds her of Kitty Hawk. When I was a child, I collected feathers until I had enough to make two small wings, climbing up onto the roof. I'd like to say I jumped off and survived the fall, but my neighbor saw me and called my parents and coaxed me down with ice cream and a new Felix the Cat clock. Amelia cried when she saw the clock, recognizing Felix from silent cartoons she had seen in movie theaters before she traveled around the world. She understood flying happened in the mind first, like sex or poems, words circling the globe, some crashing in the ocean, language a matter of timing and good weather, rain and waves held in place by the moon and tides. I watched her leave my house, the short walk down the driveway, and when she got to the sidewalk, she leaned down to scratch the ear of my neighbor's dog, the one with one eye, who does not care about the past and has no concept of the future tense. I knew I would never see her again, but looked up her name in my copy of the Britannica finding a picture of Amelia standing next to a sleek silver Electra, this confluence of time and sand, a single photograph on my grave. Thank you. I must have changed the order of these poems about 10 times already and scratched a few of them off the list. This poem is not about a fictional character. This poem, oh, actually, well, Leah Yarr is not a fictional character. This is about my grandmother. My grandmother was, she's quite a character, and she was very astute politically. She just worshipped FDR because, according to her, he rescued her and the rest of the world, if not just the US, from the Depression and from World War II. And so she always brought him up when she was thinking about presidents. And um, she didn't care much for Nixon. She used to actually spit at the TV and say, "You son of a beach." So I don't know what you say today. I guess it would be a lot stronger. I know I do. This poem is called The Sweater, and it's in her honor. Today, I noticed a thread unraveling on the sleeve of a shirt. I think of my grandmother and a sewing box, crammed with needles and thread. A proud, lifelong member of the International Lady Garment Workers Union, she kept a membership card along with her citizenship papers and a photo of my grandfather in his hand-sewn shirt next to her bed. Yet I knew she worked in harsh conditions at a time when clothing was made in the USA, when immigrant women worked long hours in poorly lit factories with no ventilation. America had its own sweatshops. Children worked in warehouses instead of going to school. A survivor of the genocide, she walked through the desert from Armenia to Lebanon before coming to America. At her funeral, I sat holding a favorite sweater, a worn wool cardigan I brought home from the hospital, the top two buttons missing, as absent as her voice. Thank you. This poem is also about an actual person from history, actually from our own contemporary times, and another very interesting personality. It's called Martha Stewart Invents My Kitchen. She's all business as she steps through the door, cleaning the counters of forgotten appliances, empty cereal boxes, and takeout cartons. She washes the dishes, empties the fridge, and sweeps the floor until the kitchen is as tidy as a jail cell. When I ask her when I can start cooking, she smiles and says, "Never." Like a blind date that went on too long. All day and half the night, she chops vegetables, grates cheese, whips cream, and kneads bread, filling dish after dish, rating a banquet for a dozen guests or more. When she finishes, I help her carry everything out to the car. "What now?" I ask, sneaking a cookie while her back is turned. "You're on your own," she says, "but keep that kitchen clean or I'll be back." Typical Jersey girl, I think. Glad to see her go and have the kitchen to myself, the happy chef of catastrophe. Thank you. Hang on a second, I gotta check. Yep. Okay. And this poem doesn't have any particular personality in it from the past or the present. It's called Lilacs Come Undone. The dream is a slow waterfall. Birds fly through the mist. They wear casual suits made from feathers and bones. Rain falls and shimmers in the sunlight like a school of fish turning together in the sea. Inside a burning house, bees play violins. I eat chocolate cake at the kitchen table. My friend knocks on the front door, bringing a bouquet of drowsy with sleep and grief, like lilacs come undone. Words floating in the air, the library of my mind holds only a snapshot. Thank you. And thank you. The last poem is an actual person from a long time ago, another writer. And this poem is called Christopher Marlowe Buys Me a Drink. At first, I don't recognize the person sitting on the next bar stool. His hat pulled down low over his forehead, I hear him order an ale in a clipped British accent and realize his clothing has a distinct 16th century look. Christopher Marlowe, I ask. Call me Kit, he replies, fingering his wispy mustache and winking at me with his one good eye. We talk for a while about theater, exotic birds, and the British monarchy, but he makes no mention of Ben Jonson or Shakespeare. When I get up to leave, he offers to buy me a drink. These vagabond seasons are out of balance, he complains. And somehow I know just what he means. Our hearts full, dense as time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Haley. I'm going to be reading, except for one poem from this book, Shaking Music from the Angry Air, which came out last fall from Sheila-Na-Gig, an amazing Haley. It's kind of autobiographical, but in a weird sort of way. You have to sort of think about Joy Harjo's Horses, and then the idea of Sergeant Pepper being an autobiographical album about the band. So that makes no sense, but that's why I thought of it. Okay, we're going to start with a poem called Diminishment, which is a bit of a meditation. I'm addicted to the sound of water. I don't need to tell you that drowning is impossible for a poem. I'm not compelled to be this transparent or well-intentioned. I can lift all things, carry them along. I understand you will hang and burn me in photoshopped effigy. The diminishment of culture is unavoidable. I'm not married to the idea of progress. I don't need to describe the beer or the threadbare relationships. I'm not elevated or vain or nuts. I understand that some of you are tender and good and whole. The diminishment of rain is a slow curl of dove-colored smoke. I am addicted to the sound of water. Okay, thank you. And this next one was published in Sheila-Na-Gig, I think a couple of years back. And it just harkens back to a very early memory of the first person that I ever thought I had fallen actually in love with. And it's called A Kind of Hum. That time when I took a train south through a western night sky, all night it seemed, crossing coastal bridges, gliding gulls in the window, stars, phosphorescent, dropped like rhinestones in the backlit surf, tracks clacking beneath cloudlets of cigarette smoke trapped in my dim compartment with strangers disinterested and silent, except a woman humming, and it was familiar, salient, the tune of her voice. But still today I can't place it, though I can hear her as clear as my mother saying, "Honey, everyone wants to be something to write home about." Though I never did, and then Mom was gone, just like the lovely girl I was riding that train to get to, longing to be even a subplot in her story. But youth is a pair of scissors, thinking it can rearrange anything in any way, snip out obstacle or inconvenience, the holes letting your shadows in. And what if I said you were made of all the things you don't understand, clever caged bird? What if all the duct tape, cracked windows, bitten lips, abandoned puppies, boarded shops, dirty snow, dying trees, spent winds, and uneaten midnight diner cherry pies on the long road back to the home you can't ever get to? What if these wet red brake lights in the dark are a kind of hum you're supposed to know? Yet, here you are, fluttering in the rattling train car of a memory destined to extinction. No history or high mass, dulcet loneliness. Thank you, thank you. This one I'm reading as a little bit of a tribute. We lost one of our horses this week, and that's always tough to deal with. This poem is actually not specifically about Casino, the one that we lost, but Casino was our horses are always rescued. So this poem actually is includes references to a horse called Luna, and they were, best buddies. So anyway, it's called Horse Sense. You can tell a horse anything. Barn swallows scatter from rafters in high-throated song when you open your mouth, but a horse listens just right. Such is the nonchalance of the stall. Outside, the riverbed fills with blue fog this morning, and I run a brush through the white mare's winter coat, my story streaming through her ear. And what a luxury for both of us to not have a common language, to not let subtleties dam the way of understanding. I can't see the scrub along the riverbank, only the shape waters have worn into the earth, and glassy eyes of houses from the other side, glaring down at everything untamed. Some things hidden are best not discovered. Some days best begin just brushing your horse in a fog. Thank you. And yeah, we do live about 100 yards off of the banks of the Mojave River, so that's kind of the context of that poem. This one is just one of those poems that's like the hangover from, COVID and Trump and all the fun stuff we all have had to deal with for. And, you have this little job every morning, you have to get up and go, hope, hope. Somebody bring me some hope. So this poem is called Poem in Which I Survive. I wake wondering why I am horizontal on my birthday. 67th. More shortcomings than there are grasshoppers in summer. More ambition squandered than Bukowski. My bed may as well be a coffin. Even moonlight avoids it. At the Dollar General, I buy 2 6-packs of Korean beer to celebrate my doctor's misdiagnosis. And I notice hummingbirds, of all things, wavering near a feeder wired inexplicably onto the side of an awning, wings braiding the parking lot air where a little sunlight has just begun to leak from the sky. Somewhere right now, masses devoid of contrition are praying for the strength to destroy those who thirst, those who survive by eating 14 crisp green grasshoppers a day. I will not surrender, will not give up the chalice of hope. I can be 2 parts sugar and 1 part water. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, and then now I'm going to dig down way back into the past. This poem was published a long time ago, but I just like reading it. Hopefully I don't flub it. It's basically a love letter. The title is Ramona, Being All Being in Hers. Ramona, so herself these days. I convinced is the shape of her and not me. Not a self-projected part of me in the shape of Ramona, or a theatrical face Ramona wears inside me. So Ramona is not the nothing of me looking for something, but the Ramona who is not waiting for someone other than seeing instead me, instead touching my cheek, perfection, and is living a choice in one body and mind, clarity, that beholds me as I behold Ramona. And that is beauty, the not waiting, the not trying, not straining to see what Ramona has not, is not. Not the me making 2 a.m. lists of what I'm missing. Nothing. Even now, as I'm writing myself down, I know as in certain that I am not just bees and her black hair, that this time is not the past I am writing, not a future, but is present, as time and the hours are always shaped like Ramona's pink Valentine candy mouth. Kisses, which have just been here and are here, both next to me and a galaxy away, like energy, or fresh ginger tea, or whiskey and black coffee. A slow cigarette etched into moonlight, floating over our bed, the bare moment. So each naked moment I see Ramona, enlightenment, eternal, perfect, clear in her mixed metaphor, mortal imperfection, always here and not here, in clutched fingers of exact instance. These my hands that only want to be my clumsy hands and touch only charity in being Ramona. Being nothing sought or invented, but me and Ramona being that choice that chooses me as me and touches not gently my dreams, but my sunburned skin and my convoluted face, my unconcerned shape, all being in hers. Thank you.
I think I'm up. Is that right? Okay. Hi, everybody. It's good to meet all of you as much as you can meet anyone through Zoom. And better yet, to meet you through the poems I've been hearing. Having a great time here. I'm John Repp. I'm coming to you from Erie, Pennsylvania. I'll be reading 4 poems from Never Far from the Egg Harbor Ice House, which came out last December. Continued thanks to Haley for that. I'm happy to report that my local library finally ordered it after some prodding. But that's neither here nor there. I'm going to read 4 poems from that book, and I'm going to begin with a poem called, well, let me start again. I'm sure everybody here knows that and has enjoyed perhaps the fact that when reading many Emily Dickinson poems, many of those poems are extremely difficult, challenging. To me, one of the great poets in world history. But anyway, when I was teaching, I used to teach a lot of Emily Dickinson poems, and I would lighten we'd work very hard on just figuring out what was going on in a lot of the poems, and I would lighten the mood with, singing some of her poems or a couple of lines from her poems to the Yellow Rose of Texas. So I like a look of agony because I know it's true. It becomes a little goofy when you sing it. I like a look of agony because I know it's true. So that leads me to say that this poem has to do with something I read concerning the minstrel tradition, which has its tentacles, began in the 1830s, arose in the 1830s, has its tentacles still penetrate American culture. I was reading a review of a book that's actually next up on my reading list. So this poem, as many of my poems do, is serpentine. It travels through time and place, and this is by far the longest explanatory thing I will say during my time here. This is called the Amherst Bell Sundown Minstrels. Emily Dickinson liked minstrel tunes. Easy to forget, she could wail on piano. And what fun to imagine her grunting like Monk in that tiny white dress as the chords of Old Dan Tucker jumped steady. The Yellow Rose of Texas must have been a kick in the head on a summer night once the tatting got tucked away, the damp parlor redolent of honeysuckle and cigars. Tracy Brimhall ends a poem, I Have My Country to Fear. Don't we all, always? Moons the history lover. The most recent doomed blockade has begun. -0, none of the vessels would exist. Algebra is the fruit of empire. It's broken many a head for figures. Easy to giggle at the hundreds of Dickinson poems made uncanny, sung to the Yellow Rose. Easy never to have known what the first singers singing the Yellow Rose sang. I didn't till 7 minutes ago. I like a look of agony, indeed. Had the penthouse of power sheltered for a crucial day a tenant who, being astute as well as bloodthirsty, watched this film of barefoot women wrangling howitzers up a cliff, millions might have become ancestors to itinerant clarinetists and bankers making microloans in a homeostatic utopia of verdant cafes and scenic game trails on every continent, and right now in lunar orbit. Brownie was just the most stubborn kid begging to count us into Oh Susanna as soon as we'd exhaled the last syllable of Jesus Loves Me and right before the air raid drill. Such vivid nobodies, Stubby and Carlo, Isaac and Ingman, Lorraine chalking blue hopscotch squares, asthmatic Stevie astride a pony for Pet Bear. John Glenn circled the earth 3 times. That's 45 dawns and dusks. But ho-hum, Emily thought dawn the time to get the dimples ready, and dusk a sapphire farm, the church a husk, black-faced songs a joy, and love so often an implacable, almost giddy no. I cannot live with you. It would be life, and life is over there. To spare that white sustenance, kissing cousin to silence, a finger brushing catgut strings. Oh, I like the click thumbs. Thank you, sir. This poem, I coming to you from Erie, Pennsylvania. I grew up in southern New Jersey. Many of my poems over the years are set in southern New Jersey pretty much during the time I lived there. Certainly not all, or maybe even the majority of the poems. But this book is starting with the title. Most of these poems are in fact set in southern New Jersey. Like I guess every place in the world, just a strange, just a bizarre place with a fascinating history. This poem's called Horticulture. Because Judy had given me for Christmas a lumpen pot she pinched and baked right in her kitchen. I tried my first African violet just after New Year's. The cat nosed its furry leaves, so I braced a 2x6 where fan belts had hung when the place was a gas station. That spring, I dug up a fern at Parman's, and Billy rinsed a number 10 can of sauerkraut, drilled holes in the bottom, and scooped it full of magic mix. People gave me stuff all the time. I started a potato in the pot my mother's geraniums died in, then hung in white pots eye-bolted to the ceiling in yam, spider plants, ivy, and an aloe Judy had coaxed back to life. The miraculous fertilizer had just come to market, so I had a jungle up there. What sudden leaves? Then again, I burned a ficus and a miniature lemon tree. Billy and Judy taught us all, having turned the bungalow whose windows spilled amber light on the lot behind Williams Liquors into the land of cocaine. And when they threw the place open in spring, the rustle and rattle of dappled leaves mingled with the tar-seamed beat of Route 47, our happily heedless chatter, and everything lost to memory or plucked from it, a fairy tune melting the iron night of winter. Poem's called They Could Have Had Something. They could have had something, Dottie and him. He was white, she black, which mattered to both of them. But that's a guess in both directions after all this time. She was his work wife, he the husband, laying out hoagies and chips and cleaning up once or twice a week. Such good talks. No guesswork there. Apollo. Tilted at a re-entry angle, the capsule demonstrates how cramped and primitive the Apollo years. Kids peel how small the astronauts must have been, the docent urging awe at their courage, especially when it came to squeezing food from toothpaste tubes. Best not to ask too much of ones so young. Science is serious fun, and the capsule looks real. Millions of imaginations thrilled to simulations and wee-hour transmissions from inside the speck, hurtling to the animated moon. Look at the heat shield atmospheric friction, chipped and blackened. They've propped the hatch open. This thing bobbed on the open sea. Engineers reasoned, each bit from nothing. And finally, and particularly appropriate since I think it's Michael is giving me the snapping fingers. I think it's appropriate this last poem I'll read is set in Greenwich Village, called After Driving Through the Holland Tunnel. The title doubles as the first line of the poem. After driving through the Holland Tunnel, we'd window-shopped antiques on McDougal, shivering in our peacoats. Have I told you this already? We pointed uptown and down, bought a newspaper and a map from a man bundled behind a green plywood counter. We climbed 5 steps into a wine bar where wine threaded one of the cheeses they brought on a board bearing an apple, a paring knife, and a miniature baguette, a word among many on the menu, unknown and therefore worldly. I've probably said this already. We ordered a bottle of Lancers, and they brought it. My beard, her mass of black hair, the way we manipulated cigarettes, and how our having come to nestle in the village, navel of the world, on a commonplace winter night, all the verification we'd need forever. Frosty taillights drifted past our window booth, and people blowing out fog. We fed each other and drank the best wine we'd ever drunk. So elemental. I can't believe I haven't told you what joy I've had being here all this time. Thanks very much.
Oh, thank you, John. Thank you, Haley, for having me on tonight. My name's Chuck Salmons. I'm coming to you from Pickerington, Ohio, which is the kind of eastern edge of Columbus, almost smack dab in the middle of the state of Ohio. And I'm going to read, the first poem I'm going to read is fairly new. My grandmother, my dad, and his people are all from the same hometown as Chuck Yeager, and I imagine this crowd probably all knows who Chuck Yeager was. So the poem's titled Poem, and there's an epigraph from an appearance that Chuck Yeager made on Late Night with David Letterman in 1982. And the line is, "It can never replace sex." That's what he tells Dave when asked what it felt like to break the sound barrier, to fly faster than anyone had before, to inscribe your name into history on a pair of wings bolted to a rocket. Yeager buckled into it like a lab rat plucked from a high school biology class in rural West Virginia. You don't have to be God to be a legend, he says. Outside that school building, his statue now stands as salute to the man who dared to live beyond the laws of nature. Inside that school, my grandmother might have dreamed between treks among Copperhead Hills around Hamlin. She may have sat at his desk, its hard maple seat with chewed edges. Maybe she blushed when he walked into Tasty Freeze, flashing his big smile. Maybe she too questioned the stars, but the Baptists would not abide it. She would be mother, homemaker. Too soon her slender frame would bend beneath the weight of a broken man's breath, tinged with drunken jealousy. She would never see her name engraved in bronze on the wall of graduates. Yeager touts, all you have to do is live. That's not easily done in America when you're a girl already married to a grown man who's drowning, when you're expecting a child of your own and praying it's a boy. This next one is from Surviving the Eremocene. And I was born in 73, and a while back I was kind of researching what happened, the year I was born. It was the year I turned 50. I had this inclination to just see what was going on in 1973. And of course, that was one of the big things was that was the year that the Roe v. Wade decision was handed down on January 22nd, 1973. And my birthday is October 22nd, 1973. So you do the math. So the poem's called Choices. It was a Monday, a good day to be conceived, and a good chance I was. At least 50-50, my mother claims. Her wry grin hovers above a glass of Cabernet. In South Columbus, that day was warmer than expected. I imagine my parents leaving Marion Franklin High School, together in my father's primer gray 62 Ford Fairlane, windows down. My mother is 16, a sophomore, and laments an early American history exam she didn't study for. My father's bitching about his early morning civics class, one of the few remaining in his senior year, its tome textbook lying in the back seat. He tunes the car radio to 1230 WCOL AM, where Johnny Rivers belts out some rockin' pneumonia. Maybe they find that empty lot behind Columbus Motor Speedway, toss Principles of Democracy to the floorboard, and practice the backseat boogie. My mother couldn't explain the vomiting, and her bout with palsy did not ring any bells. She said the term abortion was foreign, such practice unheard of in this matriarchal family. My grandmother, an ordained minister in the Church of God, knew the symptoms and upon the doctor's confirmation, dictated that her daughter be married before her belly gave away yet another family secret. With that utterance, my mother had no choice in the matter. I have no regrets, she tells me, none at all. The poems tonight are very topical. I just sort of realized that as I was looking through the set list. I work for the Ohio Geological Survey, and I love science. Had planned to be an environmental scientist, but caught the writing bug in college and ended up majoring in English. But studied science for quite a while and still love it. So this poem was inspired by a headline on a website called Mobitex, MOBITEX.org. And the headline is, as GPS jamming reaches crisis levels, scientists are teaching atoms to navigate. No satellites required. So the poem's titled Wayfinding. Before the days of GPS and Google Maps, even before I stopped wearing Pampers, I could find my way through our neighborhood alone. I waited until my parents turned their attention from me and broke free from the rusty confines of chain link fencing, bolted out of our backyard, bound for a familiar destination 2 blocks away. I toddled down Rumsey and Colton, narrow streets without curves and sidewalks, past small ranch homes on deep lots, towards my grandparents' modest house, its pale turquoise siding, narrow carport, a happy Scotty RV parked in the driveway. The one that carried us all over country roads east of the Mississippi, year after year. Every trip offered a beach or mountain or lazy river. I honed navigational skills by sun and moon, where they emblazoned the sky each season. Reliable signposts that shone above a nation finally at peace after Korea, Nam, Watergate. A nation seeking new directions paved by orbiting satellites. All signs pointing to a future brighter than one writ using frayed maps and a busted compass. We keep moving further from those landmarks. Leave it to science to look beyond our senses, harness the power of atoms, and gift us delicate tools to guide us from within as we place faith in what we cannot behold. Yeah, I was just looking at the comments, and there are several poems that came out of that experience of looking at what went on in 1973. I do have a poem that kind of speaks to the draft coming to an end and the war coming to an end. I did not know that about the Knicks, but of course I'm a Boston fan, so I don't really care. But I am rooting for the Knicks this year. I will say that. That's really hard for me to admit, but yeah. Yep, Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, there's so much. It was really fascinating. If you've never done that for yourself, I highly recommend it. It's just a really, even if you don't write poems, it's just really fun to learn about some of this stuff. This next one is another childhood poem, and I imagine most of you are familiar with the old computer game, or I should say electronic game, Simon. Um, it was called Simon, the Computer Control Game by Milton Bradley. You can look it up if you never played it, but this poem's titled Primary Colors. Simon's black box reads, "Think fast. I'm ready." Sitting cross-legged on the carpeted living room floor in a brick-clad postage stamp house. This is Southwest Columbus, 1984. Great Aunt Pat and her special friend, Donna, watch me play. They laugh along with my grandparents, Baptists who never used the terms lesbian or gay, despite grandmother's propensity to gossip. I slap big bright buttons lighting up the room, my 10-year-old face ruddy from a day of sun, almost as red as Simon's button. His 4-note tenor bloops and bleeps as if to command, "Repeat after me." Each tone a heartbeat racing, each sequence stretching into memory. Red, blue, yellow, green, colors changing like an emotional swing, colors changing more rapidly than the times, all blinking their turn as if to flutter like a rainbow flag flown with pride outside Columbus homes today. The flag Pat and Donna would not fly, could not, no matter how much love they gave us. And this last one is, I guess this is technically my newest poem. So I'm debuting it with you all here. And thanks again to Haley and to all of you who read tonight and everybody who showed up. Really appreciate it. This poem plays a little bit with a single word and kind of fun to do. I don't do this a lot, but you know, words that have like multiple meanings, it's always kind of interesting to explore those. This is divide. Not Dylan going electric, not the Beatles versus Elvis, or Billie Jean battling Bobby. Not the digital chasm that splits us into they and them, daring us to be bridged. Not quotients and remainders scrawled on the green board in Miss Jaskowiak's second grade classroom. Not even the console separating driver from passenger, where I rest my arm, take your hand. But the long, sinuous ridge that sheds the heaviness raining down on Ohio, on small towns whose names whisper, Sycamore, Shiloh, Shenandoah. Names that carry lore of lands that have traded hands, carved up and apportioned to victors who drained the swamp, took its great black richness, who spoiled the future with phosphorus, nitrogen, feeding blue-green blooms that blossom in Lake Erie. We roam 2-lane roads, winding with creeks and streams, county by county, counting miles marching us northward across the divide toward our Great Lake, its enduring history rewritten by waves lapping the shore. All that water, which once was cloud, was vapor, was river rippling over rock, those ancient mountains that rose from within, weathered then and now by wind and rain, falling hard on all our beginnings.
Thank you, Chuck, and always great to see you and our other Sheila-Na-Gig authors tonight. So we've been listening to a varied group of Sheila-Na-Gig authors, but equally wonderful. So really great taste of what we have to offer here at Sheila-Na-Gig, and you can find their books and many others at SheilaNagigBlog.com. And on our homepage, you can find always find the links to our up and coming readings. The Zoom links are always there. And next week is June 18th, and we have New Hampshire poet Laura Foley reading from her collection, Sister in a Different Movie, which was recently released by us. And we'll have some other open mic folks from Sheila-Na-Gig as well. So thanks for those who came to read and to hang out and listen. I always appreciate your support. Thanks a lot, everybody.